everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Partner Up podcast. I'm Sergio.
And I'm Kimberly.
And Kimberly, did we put air in our tires already?
No, we have not. We were supposed to do that today.
I keep asking you to remind me about that. And I know every time we get in the car, it's that same tire that's low pressure. And I know everybody in Texas is feeling the exact same thing because of the double freeze we're getting.
Yeah.
So at the time, we're in between the two freezes, and it's just this one tire that is constantly giving us an issue.
Yes.
And I really don't want to have to respond to a call to another flat tire. I think I've had enough flat tires in my life.
I'm notorious for that, calling you for flat tires.
If it's not a nail, if it's not a blowout, there's always something, some debris on the road that just magnetically gets attached to your tire.
Don't jinx me. Come on.
No, we either way, we have road hazard now. Hashtag not sponsored. Thank you, Sam's. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely have had my fair share of car maintenance and responding to emergencies. Do you have any like horror stories about cars besides the ones that I've had to share with you?
I mean, honestly, before we got together, I mean, I can really only think of that because before, I think that my dad works at a car dealership. So even before that, we would always take our cars to dealership if I have anything go wrong. I had an old hand-me-down truck for a while, and I didn't really have too many like car issues.
What was your first car?
It was a 2004 GMC Sierra truck.
In what year did you have the 2004?
I got it in 2011, I think, because it was a hand-me-down.
Okay.
From my dad.
It's not bad. I got my 2006 Hyundai Elantra when I was a sophomore. So that is...
I think I was a junior. So maybe it was 2012. I don't remember exactly.
You go into high school, what? Like, that would be 10th grade?
You go in 9th grade in your high school.
Yeah, so 10th grade is when I got it.
I think I got mine 11.
So I got a 2006 on 2010. So it's a 4-year-old car. How old was your car then?
It was... Because I got... like 8 years old?
8 years old?
Yeah.
Okay, so yours was significantly older.
Yeah, mine was older.
Did you have any significant issues with that car?
Not when I had it, but when I gave it to my brother when my parents bought me a new car when I went to college, he had more problems with it.
Really?
The engine. I don't remember exactly. I have a bad memory. I think it was like the engine, the radiator. Honestly, I'm not good with cars at all. Like, you know me. I know how to put air in my tires. I know how to put gas, and I know how to put the windshield wiper fluid, and that's about it.
That car, how long did the truck last your brother?
I don't think for that much longer. I think it was maybe like 2 years or a year after. And then when he went to, I think he got a new car when he graduated as well.
Okay.
Because he just like died.
So it's like a 10-year-old car.
Yeah. No, I mean, he graduated in 2016. So I think it lasted like my family like 12 years.
Nice. That's not bad.
Especially for a GMC. Love
my
GMC.
2006 definitely lasted a long time. Mm-hmm. But it was the Frankenstein of vehicles.
I remember.
That little blue car, we call it the blue tank, is what we called it, because it was it was the kind of car that you would get in an accident and the other vehicle was more damaged.
Even though it was small.
Yeah, it was a little tiny sedan. It was a 4-door sedan. Hyundai, not Ford. But yeah, I mean, that car made it through a lot, but because my dad didn't work at a dealership, my dad worked at the Monitor, we just had that one car, and I don't know about you, but dealerships can get expensive when it comes to maintenance.
Yes.
And like at that, even just going to like a regular mechanic can get really pricey.
Expensive. Yeah.
Do you know how mechanics charge, by the way?
No, I don't.
It's a whole thing. They have a book. So like you come in with your car and they go to the back and they have a book on the model of your car, or at least this is how they used to do it. Probably now it's like a database something. But they would have a book, and they'd say, what's wrong with your car? So it's the alternator. So they would flip through the manual of your vehicle up until where it gets to the alternator replacement, right? And if it's adjusting the band of the alternator, it would be one. Replacing the alternator is another thing. Rewiring the alternator, another thing. But each line item has a number of hours, a estimated hour of how long it's going to take to work, and that's what they give you the quote off of. So if it's going to take like 6 hours to replace the alternator and they charge $100 an hour, it's going to be $600 plus tax as the minimum quote. And then that
They're
depends.
like a minimum book, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how an actual quote is made. Do you know how in practice we get mechanics to do it a la mexicana? You call your buddy or you call like the neighborhood mechanic, and they'd be like, I'll whip that out and give me 3 hours and like $70. And they usually get it fixed for you. But for me, that blue car had so many issues. I just had to like, and I was a high school kid, and then I was a broke college kid, and then I just didn't have the funds to just keep paying others to fix this.
Yeah.
So that car had the alternator replaced. It had the radiator replaced. It had the engine rebuilt and replaced. I ordered a new engine for that car from Canada.
How do you even do that? Like
eBay. I remember searching online, and it cost $800 for a new engine, and the guy was gonna fix it for $250. So it's like $1,000, and basically it's a new car.
Because
it resets the miles.
Yeah,
basically.
because like the engine is what you need to like make sure is working. I mean, other things too, but the engine is like what makes it's the brain, right, of the car.
It's like the heart.
Oh, okay.
Right, it has a computer, so I would say the computer is the brain in it. But yeah, no, that the engine is what you measure the miles on, because it's the wear and tear in the vehicle itself. So I had my fair share of having to learn how to deal with that. So I replaced the alternator. I replaced the radiator as well.
On your own, like in your like parents' garage.
Yes, in my parents' garage, but not by myself.
Oh, okay.
I think the radiator broke twice. So the first time my dad taught me how to do it. The second time I did it by myself. And then once I got into it wasn't in high school, the first thing I did was buy a new stereo for it. And I rewired the whole thing by myself. So like I installed that radio unit by myself. I took out the stock unit, put in the new one. And I remember when I went to test it, I'm like, something feels off. And I went into the settings and started like fading and EQing the speakers. When I wanted the audio to come out of the front right speaker, it came out of the back left.
You had like wired it.
Everything was asymmetric and flipped and wrong and mirrored, and everything was wrong, but it worked. So there was music coming out of it, and that's all I cared about.
Yeah.
Because I could plug in my iPod.
The iPod?
The iPod, exactly. I could plug it in because it had the fat, what was it, like 42-pin connector. I could plug those in, and I could listen to my tunes while I drove all the way to Mercedes from McAllen. But yeah, that was a car that lived until it got totaled. It was in a car accident. It flipped upside down. It like saved the life of the person who was driving it. So I remember when my mom gave me that car, she said, son, take this car and use it until you finish it. And finish it I did.
Yep. Wow. So what experiences did you have with that car that, were memorable to you? Like the question you asked me.
I think the most memorable things that I had in that car was getting out of jams because of that car. Like I remember going to college and getting a flat tire on the way to the highway. Like I hadn't even made it to the highway. I was on the way up onto the intersection to go under the highway and get in. Didn't even make it that far. And I had to like go. And I think I had a presentation that day or something. So I was wearing a suit at 8 a.m. in the morning. And I had to go to the back, flip the tire, and put in the donut and drive on the donut to school. And I was late for work. I was late for school. I was late for everything.
It's just not a good day.
And it happened so many times. Like I remember we had that flat tire issue. And then luckily I had a friend and she had a Jeep. So when the engine died, the car was just stuck in the middle of the road.
So it died like while you were driving it?
Yeah. I mean, like, okay, so this is the way cars usually the engines die. It overheats, right? So the radiator malfunctions, which you just heard. It malfunctioned twice. So the radiator has coolant flowing through it. The coolant cools the engine, right? Radiator fails, engine gets hot. Engine blocks are made out of aluminum, and aluminum, when it gets hot, it starts to warp. You have a bunch of moving parts inside the engine. When the material of the engine gets hot, the internal pieces bust through it. So you can have like one of the valves that is pushing the energy through in the engine actually push through like the engine block and just shatter it. So that's way more expensive to fix than it is to just get one and replace, which is what I did. Because again, we go back to that book, right?
Yeah.
To fix it, they're going to look at this engine. They're going to say it's going to take us 10 hours to do this at $100, and it starts adding up.
Yeah.
Versus $500 plus shipping on eBay.
So would you say that in that car you learned like the value of learning how to fix up your own car?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of us, especially in the valley. Like I know I wasn't alone. A lot of my friends, they're car guys, and I think it was like the beginning of the journey to becoming a car guy is because your car broke and you have to fix it. Like that's usually where it starts, or at least for my friends.
I did not experience that.
I mean, I have friends who have cars that are just sitting in the driveway all dismantled while the parts come in to fix it. But yeah, I mean, all of us were always trying to fix. Like if it wasn't a Crown Victoria that we were trying to fix up, it was my car, someone's pickup, someone had a neon that the engine had to be dismantled or something. But it all comes from the same place.
Like the need.
It's
There's
the
a
necessity.
need. Okay.
Yeah, the necessity of having this vehicle to move around, because the valley's not like Austin. It's not like Dallas. It's not like any of these larger cities where you can just jump on public transportation and get from one place to another. Or if, like in the case of Austin, we don't have great public transportation, but if you live close enough downtown, then you can just walk anywhere. Right? So it's a very walkable city depending where you live. So you just got to make sure you're placed correctly. The valley, not so much. Everything consists of like field, building, field, building, field.
Yeah.
Field being turned into buildings,
Yeah.
you know.
Not a very walkable place.
No, you definitely need cars to get around. So you need cars to get to school. You need cars to get to work. It's a necessity, right? It's something that you absolutely must have.
So would you say that like that taught you or gave you any ideas on what you're going to do, what you ended up doing?
It got to the point where once I was done with Bar Hop, we were looking for new ideas. So my family was coming out. My mom got into like a boot camp for UI UX. The girls, my little sisters, were about to graduate college, and my dad
in college, right? They were in college.
Yeah, they were in college. They were about to graduate. So everybody needed some form of resume or some form of like project. So that's actually been one of my like secrets that I've always used. I never like when you're going into college, they tell you like the vicious cycle is you get your degree, but now you need experience to get a job. But then to get the experience, you need to have a job. So it's a vicious cycle, and it's like almost impossible. So what I always learned was you don't fake it, but you
create it.
You create it, exactly. So I would always make my own projects to show potential employers that I've done it before. And I think actions speak louder than words. So if I show them here, I may not have like had a job particularly that hired me to do it, but here's the project that had it working. So when everybody was asking me, how did you get into the field? Because at this point we were already living in Austin. They're like, okay, how can I get the tech job? Because the tech jobs were booming at the time. And everybody was hiring. I'm like, you just need to have a portfolio. That's literally it. Like programming is one of those fields where you don't necessarily need to have the degree. That's why boot camps became super popular. You just need to show that you can do the work. If you have a good enough portfolio, you can get in. So it's like, okay. So we started brainstorming ideas on all the different projects that we could do as just sort of a resume builder. And I think my mom had one idea of like a car inventory app where you would as you, again, everyone in the Valley has their car and built it up. My dad was a big fanatic of his pickup truck when he was younger. He built it up. He put in speakers and put a new sound system and put amplifiers on it and bazookas and whatnot. Bazookas are speakers. They're not fire.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a type of long speakers, in case you didn't know. But yeah, so like all these things increase the value. And if you don't keep track of them, when you go to sell, they're just going to sell it as a pickup truck, right? And they'll take
The
it in.
basic pickup truck, it's like on the name on the car.
Exactly. So when we were looking for ideas, my mom said, "Oh, here's the thing." And I'm like, I like the idea. Like I see it usable. But in my mind, once I was pairing it with everything I was learning in Austin about the startup scene and how startups work, it was too niche. Like this app was only gonna facilitate the life of car enthusiasts, right? And she's like, in her defense, she was like, well, what if like you it's not just that you upgrade, you buy the base model, you upgrade the stereo, you upgrade speakers, like that could help anybody. Like it still seemed a little too niche to me. Mm-hmm. So I had already dipped my toes with the Uber model, the gig economy model in iPark, in concession, in bar hop. So I knew like that's where everything usually flows around. It's the idea of adopting some talent on the mass scale. So back to my everybody has a phone mentality. Mm-hmm. Everybody also has a car. They need a car to get around. Maybe not in Austin, maybe not in Dallas, not in New York, but definitely Texas. Yeah. Texas, you need a car to get around.
So, in most of Texas, you need a car, and everybody has access to a vehicle.
Exactly. So that seemed to me like a much greater market.
Reach.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, how can we address everybody who has a car? Not just the people who are upgrading their car. And I started thinking, okay, well, what about applying the same sort of gig economy model for cars? Like, what is something that I hated doing, but I knew that everybody knew how to do? All my friends knew how to do it. Like, it wasn't a difficult skill, but it was definitely a skill. Mm-hmm. And things like my grandma would show up and help me when I went too long without filling my tank. So I was left in the middle of the highway without gas.
Yep.
Or I didn't put air in the tire. So the next morning when I woke up, the tire was flat and I couldn't get to work and I didn't have an air compressor on me. I literally just needed somebody who had the right tools to help me out. So I'm like, I've had friends, I called my friend with a Jeep and told her, hey, I need you to come help me pull my car because the engine died. And she's like, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, I literally just need you to show up with your car and some ropes. And we got this. And that's literally all I needed. I just needed the person with the right equipment. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking about that. That's the same way that the Uber model works. It's the same way that DoorDash works. It's you have the right person at the right time that can perform the right service. Mm-hmm. And it's important to note that this model only works. The Uber model only works when you have an interchangeable set of people performing interchangeable set of skills. So, for example, babysitting app tried to adopt the Uber model and saying, oh, anybody can be a babysitter.
That's not true.
Exactly. You wouldn't just trust
not true.
a kid to anybody.
Yes.
Right? So being a babysitter, being a trusted individual is a skill set that you can't just replace one person with another. On the other hand, if you're stuck on the side of the road and your car won't turn on because your battery is dead, anybody can just show up and jump you. Right? There's a lot less strict category.
Or bring you a jerry can of gas.
Exactly.
Anybody can do that.
I'm like, that is the interchangeable set of skills that we could harness. Because even somebody who's not a car person can show up with a jerry can and give you gas. And because they're performing this service for you, they can get paid for it. And now we've built an economy. And thus, Fixie was born.
Yes, your big idea.
Yeah, so this was a from scratch project that we worked on all together. This time we had a team. There was
Yes.
methodology, and I wasn't allowed to just start developing.
Yes, like before. And like this, all the background we've talked about, like that was all your experience leading up to Fixie.
Right.
All from high school, college, post-college. Not even just the car stuff, but just like the other things you worked on, the other ideas. Like you learned how not to make an app and then how like you needed support.
Yep. I feel like every single project that I endeavor myself with at this point is turning more and more into the Thomas Edison phrase that says, "Oh, I didn't fail 1,000 times at making a light bulb. I just learned 999 ways to not make a light bulb." So I feel like that's a very common sentiment amongst startup founders.
Yeah.
And Fixie was where I pretty much put all of these blunders that I've had back to back,
Yeah.
put together, and actually came out with a really solid product. And a lot of that was thanks to the team that I had surrounded myself with. So we had very capable individuals that were joining us. So as I mentioned before, my mom had come out of a design boot camp. And she had a friend. She made a friend in there from Mexico. It was in UT Austin, but it was online. So she brought her over and was like, "Hey, she's a really good designer as well. I think she'd be a great addition to the team." So I'm like, "Okay, cool. So you guys are going to be in charge of research and design. I'm going to be in charge of Android and iOS, and if we can have my sisters pitch in like the simple bugs to fix." At the same time, we were also trying to get another family member to join the tech industry. So we asked them to join, and we got them a little bit of iOS experience on there as well. So it was definitely like ad hoc. Everybody would contribute to the project on their own time, but we had a strategy this time. So based on the discipline that my mom had learned at that boot camp, we were able to start applying a roadmap to design. So we were able to do research. We were able to do interviews. We were able to look at our user persona. We were able to create a user profile, a user journey map, like all the things that actually lets you know, hey, this product is a product that someone wants to do. So if you think before, that product market fit we were talking about actually got validated during that research. So I already understood the concept. I knew what I wanted to develop. I was told, no, you're not going to develop. You're not going to waste your time making a product until you know that someone's actually going to use it.
Yeah. And that's key, I think, to any, that's about last time, to any product, idea, app, what a service, does somebody want to have, a goldfish shop? No, but who wants that? Like you have to figure out where it fits.
Exactly. So I think this was the first project that we put in mind that we wanted to sell. For a lot of the other projects, we wanted to develop and hold. We wanted it to be free of investors. We didn't want anybody to take a slice of that pie. So we wanted to make sure that we built it as a family and sort of kept it in the family business. Because at that point, we were building websites, we were building networks for other clients around the valley. So we had published apps for local municipalities there as well. So we wanted to make sure that we kept building what we had. And quickly I learned that, like, on the startup world, that's not how you do it. You got to learn how to raise funds. And that's a very important skill to have in the startup world. Because you can either have something done quickly or you can have something done cheaply. And by cheaply, I mean without an injection of funds.
Yeah.
And I think that's the lesson that we've been learning here in Fixie. We have a whole team that could push out and develop the app. And we were able to get the Android app out relatively quickly. So it took us around 6 months of research, 6 months of developing on Android, and we're still developing on iOS.
Yes.
But the Android app is fully functioning and available currently
Shout
on the
out
App
to
Store.
our contractor who we hired.
That's right. We were just talking to him earlier today.
He was still our friend, basically. He's great.
Yeah, his name's Tyler Williams. He is a great Android developer that helped us. And in case you guys are wondering like how that worked, like we needed help. I didn't have the time to just do all the Android development myself, but I could architect it. I could help clear out,
guide him.
Exactly. So I just needed somebody to actually just sit down and do the code. So that's when we hired Tyler to come on board. If you're in a similar situation where maybe you're lacking some resources and you need it, I just went on to Upwork, and I think it's super crucial that you don't hire on an hourly salary, hire on a contract salary. So like on a milestone basis.
Yeah.
It just gives you a lot more flexibility on and negotiating power. So if you're upfront with the developer, like we were with Tyler, I'm like, look, we don't have a lot of money. We just have this idea and like a dream, and we want to make sure that once this takes off, then the plan was to get everybody full time on this project. All right, but the whole startup ecosystem, like we have BarHop and then COVID.
Yeah.
Now we have Fixie. And then every tech company decided to start doing layoffs.
Not even just tech companies. Like investors stopped investing as much, because before you would hear millions of dollars being just thrown out at all these ideas. Like it wasn't even finished products. And we had a pretty much almost finished product. Investors started just like clutching their wallets a little tighter.
So when I was learning the startup ecosystem and the landscape, you had to show up with an idea, and you had to sell investors on the idea that you could get their money and make it work. You didn't have to make it profitable. You just had to take your idea and make it tangible. So I thought, I have one up on them because I'm a technical founder. I can make it work, go to the investors, and then while everybody's pitching their ideas, I'm pitching a product that is built. So during this time, I was also working with another individual who launched a startup. He's the one who got me into the job that I got from Marketplace. He decided to leave that company and start another startup, and he was able to get funds from investors. Like a startup, was just created a funding round, got it funded, and launched his new venture. And I was like, okay, that's what I wanted to learn how to do. Like that's what we need to do. But unfortunately, conflict of interest, previous company, poaching, so we had to sever ties, and I wasn't able to contribute much to that project or get any more of that mentorship from him. But either way, that taught me a lot about just talking, getting out in there and trying to get the investor crowd and what they're looking for. Then the banks decided to fail. And I think there was that Silicon Valley bank.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that happened.
That's where everybody had, or most startups had their money in, and it collapsed basically. There was a money run on the bank. The bank didn't have enough money. But like the crazy thing is that even though the money in the bank like failed in the system, everything, it was FDIC insured and everything, and the government stepped in to make sure that everybody got their money back. Even though with that, everything that happened, all the intervention that there was and everything was fine for the investors. I think some of them actually ended up making money. That was like it spooked the market. And
an eye-opening experience for them.
It made investors stop investing. And what a lot of people might not know about the way that these software companies operate is they get money from investors, and they're not meant to be profitable. They're not meant to have a business model that is conducive to sustainable growth or sustainable existence per se, right? So like you have Netflix, you have Uber that has like historically never turned a profit. It's not about making profit and being sustainable. It's about making growth.
Yeah.
It's about having exponential growth and making sure that your app and your company is as widely used as possible. So you're not focusing on making money, you're focusing on growing like crazy. And the only way you can continue to do that and keep that model going is if you have money coming in from somewhere. If you're not getting money from your actual company that you're running because you're losing money in the company, then you have to keep getting it from investors. At that point, investors get spooked. They stop giving out money to startups, or like not just startups. I mean, there's larger investor firms that give money to Intel, that give money to NVIDIA, larger companies as well. And if they're not shelling out their cash, then they don't have enough money to sustain their current staff. So what happens is, hey, they already told us that next year they're not going to give us more money, so we can't sustain the current headcount. Unfortunately, we're going to have to let some of you guys go.
Yeah.
And
that's where all the trouble happens.
That's where it happens. So the game plan for Fixie was we were living well beneath our means. We've always been really good at budgeting our money. So
you've been very good about budgeting.
Yeah, I had
you kind of just dragged me along, and I've had to learn over the years.
Hey, if it worked,
it helped though. I'm not complaining. It was a good thing.
That's right. It helped. It worked, and it got us through that time.
Yes.
But the original plan for Fixie was get investors, right? Like make the product work, even if it's on one platform, even if it's not on both platforms. Just get one platform working. Show confidence in the fact that we can make a product, deliver it, and push it out
with customers. That's also
not
key.
Customers. At the time, we weren't looking for customers. At the time, we just wanted to get the product out, be able to demo it, show it working live, not just like a fake demo that a real working product. I remember we went to an unnamed dealership. We talked with their CEO, and we showed them the product working. Right, so like we had a fully functional prototype where, and I would say it's a little bit more than a prototype. At that point, it was like a beta model because it
was all on Android because that was done.
We would have somebody being on standby. We simulated a flat tire, and then we had a runner come perform the service, get charged, submit the payment, and leave. So just like you would expect an Uber transaction to go through, we did the Fixie transaction, and it went off. So I'm like, okay, we have the product. We did it, team. 6 months of research and a year of development. Now it's time to go raise funds. So I start going to events. I start going to Startup Week down in Capital Factory. I start trying to make connections to find investors to fund this startup, right? Because at this point, I don't have this idea of keeping it and having 100% of the company myself. No, now I know how the world works. Now I know that I need investors to make this thing grow. Because owning 1% of $1 million is better than owning 100% of $0.
Yeah.
Right. So I started looking, and that's when I learned that, how the turn have tables. The sentiment now was not just have an idea. It had shifted past get an idea and get a product into have meaningful revenue. So now what investors were looking for was essentially weeding out most of the failures as possible, right? So no, we don't want to take the risk on your idea. No, we don't want to take a risk on your prototype. We want to take a risk on something that is already performing.
Yeah.
And that's where we hit our roadblock, because we had our product, it was working, but it wasn't performing. We didn't have customers yet.
Yeah.
And we hit a roadblock. We hit back to this idea of the chicken and an egg, right? So Fixie is Uber for roadside assistance. You can get a flat tire fix. You can get your lockout. You can get the
gas,
towing,
battery,
anything that you would expect your uncle with a pickup truck to be able to get you out of. That's the whole point of Fixie. It's a neighbor that can help you out when you're in trouble.
It's not an official mechanic that's coming to find you. It could, but in general, it's just like we wanted something that anybody, your cousin could do it, your friend can do it. That kind of mentality.
Right. But in order for people to sign up for the service, because honestly, it was an ad hoc basis, right? It's you download the app And when something bad happens to you, then you just order the service and come forth, right? But for people to download the app and have it on standby, there would need to be roadrunners that are going to respond to that. And for their
And roadrunners are what we call the people who would do the service.
correct.
We came up with that name. I forgot how we came up with it.
It was part of the
the
research.
market research, yeah.
Yeah. So we gave a shout out to Tyler. Our designers were my mom, Claudia Nunez, and Sofia.
Yes.
So Sophia was able to help us out a lot. So we came up with the Roadrunner, Fixie, all these terminologies. We got our logo. We have a website. We had everything, all our collateral, which is a word I learned from them, because once Pat joined our team, we were able to get all these assets designed because she's the one who helped us up in Bar Hop and put up the flyers.
I remember that. They were really good.
Yeah, so like we had a huge team. Well, huge for us.
Yeah.
I mean, when you put it into perspective, where like Instagram was being run by a team of like 9 people, like we had what we needed to get the product out.
Yeah.
Right. And now, well, our strength has always been on Android. It's always been a little lackluster over on iOS. So currently, we're still waiting, and we're slated to put iOS app on there, right? But now we need to figure out a way how to break that chicken and egg problem. So the plan A, once we realized this investor tone had shifted, was I have a engineering job. I am living in a 1-bedroom apartment. You had moved in. We were dinks. We had dual income, no kids.
Yes.
So we had enough income coming in where we could save money and essentially just pay these roadrunners out of pocket to be on standby. Then the layoffs hit.
Yeah.
And, job status has changed. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case anymore.
That wasn't an option anymore.
Yeah. So it put us into this stage of limbo where, well, now we're really going to have to start figuring out this chicken and egg problem. But before we can even start addressing that, we need to make sure we have our iOS app up and running. So because times were tight, everybody was looking for a job. Nobody had the real time to sit down and develop. So it just sort of been our roadblock up until right now, which is why our iOS app is slated to hopefully be done in sometime late January.
Yes.
So once that's out,
which should be done by the time this episode premieres.
That's right. So we started shifting sort of our strategies into, okay, let's get the chickens, right? So we need to figure out a way to infiltrate a model so that I could be the roadrunner or a friend could be a roadrunner, right? Because I could go out at that time. I didn't have a job, so I could be the roadrunner and bring people forward. But where are we going to get the people from? So I think we did the model based on upsells during vehicle sales, or
tying it to insurance.
Tying it to an insurance policy, or even embedding it to a school system.
Like
so
university
make it be part of a tuition, and then every student is covered. So we had 3 very good viable models, but the sales cycle on it is just so long on it.
Or like getting the approval from the people who do that. Does somebody want to enter this new contract? Because they basically have to be a contract with Fixie. Do they want to bother? Some people, especially in the Valley, don't want to like break into a new market or break into a new service and be like, I don't understand how this works. Like, I'm not going to bother with you.
That's right.
That's the problem we've been finding.
And it goes back to the same issues that we've been having with Bar Hop, right? So it's like
the managers you talked about last week.
Exactly. You need to get to the decision makers. Who's the ones who you actually need to make the sale to? Like, I talked to a lot of people. I've demoed a lot of different apps to a lot of different people. But if you're not talking to the decision makers, then you're not going to get far. And some of the decision makers aren't even the people who you'd expect. Like, you can't necessarily go straight to the top. Sometimes there's a whole separate department that's independent of the person who's running the ship that actually makes that decision. So without having a relationship with that person, it's going to be real tough to
and that's what we've learned too, is like, it's not necessarily, do you have a good product? Because like when we talk to people about Fixie, they love the idea. But it's like, are people willing to even like listen and take it in?
Yeah.
You know, like, and are they willing to like be open-minded? Or like the relationships you have with them, they don't know you. You know, oh yes, this one person knows this person, but they don't know like you, Sergio. You know, so they're not willing to trust you. So even if people have tried making connections for us, it just hasn't worked.
Yeah. So I mean, a large part of this is gonna go down to outreach. So
Yeah.
I discovered this person called Alex Hormozy. So it very quickly became evident that the skill that I'm missing is sales, not negotiation. I'm a very good negotiator, and that's a large part of sales, you know, to close it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say I'm bad at closing, but it's definitely getting the leads
Yeah.
and making sure we have a funnel of people, of traffic coming through us. That I think that
The right
is,
type of people.
yeah, I think that is the key that we've been missing, and we're hoping to address soon.
In the
very soon,
future
in the
of like
future.
what Fixie holds, because as soon as the iOS is done, we have ideas of how we can, you know, get the ball rolling, because we want Fixie to succeed, whether
Exactly.
that is in the Valley or somewhere else. But you know, I think the goal right now is just to get it done and then get people who are interested in this type of technology
That's right.
working with us.
I think Fixie is special in a lot of ways. In the fact that I've been studying a lot of different business models, right? And like, for example, a restaurant, right? That's a type of business that wouldn't be what's called venture backable. So a venture capital firm is those investors that take you to the moon. That's what gets you to PayPal status. That's what gets you to Netflix, to Google, those FANG corporations in San Francisco. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for something to be venture backable. They're looking for something that can scale. Something that if you build it once, you can sell it again and again to an infinite number of people. Well, maybe not infinite, but a large scale amount of people. So things like Netflix, it usually comes in the form of software, because you build it once and then you can sell it as many times as you can. It usually comes in the form of a service, like movies or infrastructure in the case of Amazon.
Yeah.
Right? So Fixie is one of those things that I think has the potential to be venture backable, assuming we can penetrate the market in the right way. So we're going to need to figure out the right way to pivot Fixie to attract the right kinds of people that are willing to be early adopters in this app to start that growth. So that it's a very infamous hockey stick that those venture companies are looking for, and it's the growth where it's like slow, and out of nowhere it shoots up, and now you have this mass adoption.
Yeah.
And it's where you would see like Netflix with DVDs, and then streaming. You know, so the difference, what gets you that hockey stick, is going back to the restaurant analogies. If you have a restaurant and you can service 100 customers, what do you need to do to service another 100 customers? Well, you need to build another restaurant, or you need to invest in more equipment.
Scalable.
Right? So the scaling factor of it is 1 to 1. You have to build one restaurant to service a certain amount of customers. You make it as efficient as possible. Let's assume you have the most efficient restaurant in the world, which is like McDonald's, right? They got their process down to a science. Well, now you're going to have to do the same thing again to service a larger population and scale that way. So it's a 1 to 1. That's not an exponential growth, right? But things like Netflix, you build one server, you build one software landing page that you can log into and pay a monthly subscription to. You don't need to do that again. You don't need to hire more developers. You don't need to. If anything, you might need to increase the server load, right? And make sure that you have the right hardware. You're giving AWS the right amount of resources so that your system doesn't crash. But you're not having to rebuild. You're not having to put more effort into the business to get more money out of it. You have to grow it more. And that's where this huge emphasis on growth rather than profit comes from. And I think Fixie really does have that because it can be ported internationally. We already have some plans to try to get this over into Latin America, over in Mexico. It can be distributed all over Texas really wherever we have Roadrunners. I mean, if I go look at our wait list right now for Roadrunners, getfixie.app. Let me make sure that's right. Getfixie.app. And you go and you sign up as a waitlist to be a Roadrunner to make money by helping other people who are in need and are in a roadside assistance situation. We have people that are signing in Minnesota, in Tennessee, all over the country. They're just organically finding our website. Maybe they find a YouTube video that has been up for it. Because I've done a couple of pitches. We've recorded those.
Yeah.
And we get them. So, like, there's literally nothing stopping us from enabling Fixie in Minnesota or Tennessee. It's all the same technology. We just need to flip a switch. But we can't do that confidently unless we have the community around it that can serve as the customers.
Yep.
And that's our current sort of constraint. And that gets fixed one of two ways. We either put in more development hours to make sure that we have the product as optimized and streamlined, ready to go, and then start going back to plan A. Thankfully, now we're in a more stable situation, so we can revert back to that. Hey, let's see if we can maybe recruit a couple of Roadrunners and pay them to be on standby in a very localized area, and then grow the community that way. Or two, by some miracle, we find investors that are aligned with the goals of Fixie. Usually it's probably going to be somebody that does business with like AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts or something like that. O'Reilly, something that's like vehicle, maybe USAA or what is the AAA, right? Some investor has to be lined up with those type of interests. Find and discover Fixie, like the value proposition that we have, and then start injecting funds so we can just focus on that growth, because that's the stage that we are right now.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with the current climate of most investors not willing to take that risk unless they see profit first, that's the kicker. We need to find a way to make some profit first to show that this is a product, a viable product, and then the investors will more than likely start coming. At least that's my hypothesis.
That's your hope?
That is my hope.
Yeah. Okay, well, closing thoughts on Fixie as a whole. You kind of like close this off on like the investing and the hope for it. But like if you had to just one sentence pitch for Fixie, why should somebody care? What's the impact Fixie's going to have for them as individuals?
Fixie allows, or should I say Fixie? let me start that again. We can just cut that. Fixie allows anybody to be able to make money with the skills that they already have, right? There's people that are going to be in dangerous situations because being stuck in a roadside assistance can potentially be lethal. So somebody who knows what they're doing in that situation can come, provide assistance, and make money from that skill that they have and helping out everyone in the process. It helps everybody become a helping hand and a helping neighbor for the rest of the other people while being able to create some economy on the side. So I feel like just like me when I was a teenager and I could fix flat tires, I could get myself back up and on the road again. There's tons of other people that can do the same thing, and it's an income earning potential now. So if you feel like you have what it takes and you feel like you have the skills to help someone else that's in need in the road, then sign up for our wait list and help us grow this app.
Getfixie.app.
All right. Well, thank you guys. That was episode 5.
Yes.
And we'll hope to see you next time. I'm Sergio.
I'm Kimberly. Bye.
Bye-bye.